So I thought I'd do a piece. It's early May 2016. I thought I'd do a piece on buying houses, mainly buying houses, but I might mention other things, cars and stuff. Because it's that kind of weather, May, and it turned out to be beautiful May. There's blue sky and stuff out there. Have a look at that. Yeah, look at that. You feel as though we don't often get this in Britain. So it's like amazing sky and everything. Houses. What's the rule about houses? This turns out to be quite common to houses and to and to cars and a lot of stuff. Okay. So here's the golden rule. There is one single golden rule that you have to know about buying stuff. Okay, and that is this simple rule. You've heard of the 80-20 rule. It's called the Pareto principle, I believe. That 80% of your effort goes into 20% of the sales. Or, in this case, 80% of the stuff on the market, 80%, 80, most of it, that's 4/5, yeah, is crap. 80% of the stuff that's for sale is pants, rubbish, garbage, and you don't want to buy it, right? And that's almost anything you care to talk about, be it motorcycles, houses, cars, other stuff. As you get to a lower level, maybe plant pots or something, maybe it's not such a big deal. Okay, so let's say that you're in the market for a house. You'll go around that house, obviously, you'll see it from the outside, you'll check it out on the internet. You'll then go drive by, minus the machine gun, you'll go drive by the house and you'll have a look around the area. You might physically see if there's what's in the wider area and what the routes are into it, and one of the things to check is if it's on a rat run or something, but that's the kind of outside of it, and you check if there's parks and stuff and amenities and things. Pardon me. You go to a house and straight away you can tell a lot by the picture. Is it shabby on the outside? What state is the front garden in? What's the state of the roof? You can quite often see that. Is the driveway wide enough for a car? Now, here's where in Britain, particularly in the UK, 80% of the houses really are, it's more than 80% are garbage. Anyone in Britain knows this, but nobody really mentions it. The salesperson, the estate agent will say to you, oh, there's a garage, and everyone will automatically go, yeah, I won't be able to put a car in it. Now in America, I'm sure you don't do this. I'm sure that in America people say, it's got a garage, yeah, I expect to be able to put a car in that. In fact, in America, I bet you expect to put an SUV in it. In Britain, you buy a brand new house. I kid you not, if you're from Canada or somewhere, you'll be amazed. You buy a brand new house and it's got a built-in garage and it is wide enough to fit a Fiat 500. Right? And you better not want to get out of it either. You got to drive in and get out the sunroof. That's a brand new house, a brand new townhouse where most of the bottom of the house is occupied by the garage. You won't be able to get in it and get out the car once you're in it. And then you fill it up with crap anyway, but that's not the point. The reason a lot of these things are filled up with garbage and stuff is because you can't really fit your car in them anyway. That's a tiny car has trouble getting in. A full-size car? And it's the 8 foot thing, you see, they make them 8 foot wide. And 8 feet turns out to be naff all when you're talking about opening a car door. Most car doors are 5 foot, most cars are 5 foot plus wide. And they've been getting wider recently. Okay? So that's the first thing. Most garages will be completely useless for their intended purpose. They're actually just there so that you get the impression of a property that's big enough to have a garage. The driveways in a lot of semis in Britain are way too narrow. some detached of this problem as well, but especially I would say it applies to semis. And there's this you have to scrape it down the wall to get it to your garage. It's just plots of land in Britain are really small, because basically the more houses you can stuff on an estate, the more the housing developer and so on gets out of it. So they tend to do all this sort of stuff. Up the road from where I live, there's big detached houses that don't actually even have a garage built in. And yet these houses to me look huge. They're probably twice the square footage of what we've got. And yet they don't have a garage. You look at it, oh God. And they'll be wanting $250,000 for that, which in the north of England is quite a lot of money to ask. Anyway, so you go into the house. Here's another rule about houses. When you go looking around the house, if it looks a little bit worn and you think, oh, I might need to clean that up a bit, or I might need to do something, or I might need repainting. If you're saying that about more than 1 or 2 rooms, beware, because I can tell you from experience, it quickly turns from having to clean it up a bit and paint it a bit into gutting the house. This is a function of several things, but it will go from needs tidying. When somebody says it needs tidying, if an estate agent were to give you that on the brochure or told you that needs tidying, that place needs gutting. If they're prepared to go as far as to admit it needs tidying, it needs gutted. And whether you can force yourself to live with it or not is another matter. But, you know, we were around an area not so long ago, a couple of years back, and we were checking out all the houses in this particular area in this particular city in the north of England. And it's got a park nearby, and it's quite a kind of middle of the road area. Doesn't have a big grubby estate right next to it or anything. It's alright. And the schools are okay. In fact, they're pretty good. Yeah, it's alright. And 80% of the houses there or more. In fact, I can be honest, we saw at least 20 houses. And we settled on one that was actually worth having. That was a really good house and that we would have been prepared to stretch the budget for. All the rest were all had a problem. A fundamental problem that would never be solved. Now, I probably am a lot more picky now. See, when you're moving to a house where you think, or you're sure you're going to be moving on afterward, like your first property, you might well think you're going to move on afterward. It's okay to buy something that isn't perfect. But when you think that probably it's the sort of house where you might not necessarily ever move on from, like your second, nowadays I'd say your second or third, back in the old days, go back 30 or 40 years, people moved quite a lot. People are a lot less keen on moving house now. Because they used to think you can make money out of it. I think people are realising now you don't actually make money out of moving houses. Not, you know, if you want to turn yourself into a house buyer and seller, okay. But if you want to live in a house, you usually don't make a lot of money on a house in a short period of time. Professional buyers and sellers do, because everything's tailored to making money. That is, everything revolves around that one premise. That is why they're doing it. So cheap crap galore, usually. They'll replace anything with cheap crap. So yeah, if it seems like it needs tidying, especially the kitchen, of course. I mean, there have been situations, houses bought, where people rip out almost a brand new kitchen to put the air kitchen in, because, you know, it's such a personal thing. And so arguably in that sense you could say you don't want a house that's perfect or in really, really great, fantastic renovated condition, because you might not like what it is they've got in some of it. So yeah, this one particular house, and the vendor told lots of fibs like, we won't accept any offers. We drove by about a couple of months later and they had accepted a cash offer of about 15 grand less, which was about 5% or 4% or something less than the asking price. And that person had offered them cash because that person seemed to have come into some money. So bang, offered them either no mortgage or their mortgage was no problem because they were coming along with some cash as well. And they got the house. Now, they won't have a perfect life or anything, but they got the only property that we thought, from looking around that entire area, which is a good area, the only property that we thought was worth having. The garage wasn't too small. The house was reasonably arranged, so on and so forth. There were other ones that'd be second and third choices, but beyond the second and third choice, I can certainly say all of them had a problem that I would have thought every day, that's annoying. Driveway too narrow, whatever the heck it is. You put up with these things if you have to, that's a fact. But if you were looking for a property that didn't have these things, you end up finding that most of the stuff on the market is no good. And of course, that's stuff that tends to get sold, you see, because people will hold on to houses and stay there if the property is good and has all the fundamentals are sorted. What else is there about buying houses? The survey is almost pointless. I've said another piece about this. The more experience you get, the less interest you take in a survey. Unless, basically, all you're looking for from a survey is that it doesn't say there's a huge crack, don't buy it. And to be honest, you can't guarantee that the surveyor hasn't missed something anyway. So do not expect much from them. They would fight you tooth and nail if you ever had to make a claim against the survey. So those surveys, you will find there are caveats galore, and the way they word it is also that they will never have to make a claim, a legal claim, on their insurance, on their indemnity insurance. I mean, indemnity insurance costs so much, it's all right until they make a claim, you see. And as soon as any professional person has made a claim on indemnity insurance, that is their insurance through the roof. So people behave as though indemnity insurance does not exist. It's quite interesting, the psychology of it. It's a big enough cost just paying it. You get a claim on it, it goes through the roof. So, pardon the pun. So surveyors and so on, there are caveats galore, and there will always be another report for you to get. And I guarantee you this, you can spend thousands on reports and nothing will ever get better because of a report. In the end, it's better to buy at a lower price and to know you've got the money in the bank if you had to do something. So the gutting thing can happen very quickly. Very quickly you can move it. And professional buyer-seller type people know this. You can look at most houses. Most houses you look at will need painted top to bottom. All the sockets will be crap. I mean, there was one I went to look at, it had been let out. And as soon as it had been let out, I knew it'd be shabby and everything would be worn to buggery. So I knew it'd be really knackered inside, and it was. They'd done a quick clean up, but still all the sockets had dirt round them, and obviously been a smoker at some point had lived in it, and the sockets were all old looking, 20 or 30 year old, and I thought, yeah, this is shabby, this is a rip out. It was a semi, it had a massive garage, that was the only thing I had going for it, and if you didn't want a massive garage, you would say that was sat on your garden, yeah? So, it all depends what you're after. So I mean the basic point to get across is the 80-20 rule. 80% of the stuff on the market, especially in the housing market, is pants. It's absolute garbage. You shouldn't be taking an interest in most of the houses you look at. At every step of the way, when you first look on the internet, when you're driving around, when you actually go and see your top 5 list or whatever, 80% of those houses you ought to come away from, after having thought about it a bit and gone round it, if not straight away, you should be thinking, yeah, that's got a problem, that. We're looking for one that doesn't have a problem like that. Yeah? And you will find that that's a good way to knock it down. And in the end, you will realise that out of 40 houses or 50 or 100 houses you've looked at, there are like 5 that you would actually put an offer on. So don't be surprised when you see things like TV programs where it's a summer house in the sun or whatever, that the person who they're showing around, the people they're showing around, in the end don't make an offer on any of the properties that were shown. Remember, at most they normally get shown about 5 properties. By my rule, the 80-20 rule, they are throwing away 4 of those. In other words, there is normally one that they would actually be interested in. They'll try and make an offer on it, and of course you can't tell me that the person selling it doesn't get wind of the fact that their house is now on a TV programme. All of a sudden, someone who is prepared to accept offers suddenly isn't. And there was one recently where they put an offer on that they know for a fact had been accepted previously, and suddenly that offer was not acceptable. And that's the estate agent telling the vendor, look, it's a TV programme putting your house on telly. So, expect a few more offers. So all of a sudden, it's firmed up and the vendor doesn't want to sell it at a knockdown price anymore. So, that's the top and the bottom of buying houses. The important thing about buying anything is 80% of what's in the market is copycat crap. It can look like a good item, but it actually isn't. It can look very similar to the real thing and to what you think you might want. But when you actually look at it and check all the features, a checklist isn't a bad idea for a house. You might want detached, you might want a garage you can get your car in. I just went by a garage. And I basically looked at all these houses, and that makes it really easy to tap in the head in the UK, because it came down to, out of 100 houses, there were 5 that in the garage I could park my car in, open the doors and actually work on the car. Because it turns out in the UK you need at least a 1.5 garage to a double garage in order to be able to do that. So if you're looking for a good garage, it makes choosing a house relatively simple, because you can tap in the head 19 out of 20 houses. Okay, so if you're house hunting, good luck. Thanks for watching and listening.